Alright, so for the past week I have been playing through Oselands and it has been confusing, to say the very least. Now, a couple things I want to give some good points for this mod is it does have a built-in cutscene skipper. There are a couple of other quality of lives built into it, like being able to spawn a barrel technical without having to change it from a saw blade to a barrel. There are some cool there are relics that are pretty cool because they spawn with their main benefit, and then they spawn with an additional benefit such as movement speed or extra damage or mag size or basically just pick any stat and it can roll that as an additional stat on relics. So that does feel really cool and it does kind of help the mod along a little bit. Now for the skill trees of the characters I played through as Zero. It feels pretty vanilla, but there is a bigger emphasis on being able to spam your cooldowns, which is super nice. And then of course, there is a synergy in speccing out your tree. So for the melee tree, every 5 points gives you 5% more melee damage. For the middle tree, every 5 points gives you 4% more shield capacity. And then for left tree, it gives critical hit damage. So the skill trees feel pretty good. Overall, they are very vanilla in theme though. You still have your basic gun and kunai and debuff and stuff here. You've got your melee over here. You've got your sniper and crit over here. Now, one thing that has me very confused about this mod is the weapons, because they have made some changes that I'm not quite sure about, such as this vendor in Torg DLC. All of the Torg DLC vendors have specific items that can be sold by them rather, and if we just look through here, you can pick about any item in the game, and if it's a legendary, you can find it here. You can find torches, so you can find Gen 2 comms in here, you can find Gen 1 comms like the legendary siren, you can find the new relics that are sort of nice, but realistically aren't too much better than vanilla. And then you can find whatever shield, whatever grenade, whatever weapon you really want from these vendors. And I've got to say, this was kind of the nail in the coffin that made me decide to just speedrun the mod instead of actually playing it through properly. Because this is basically just free stuff at this point, and I don't really understand why they included it. But I guess some people don't necessarily like to farm, so I do get that. That is totally fair. It just feels really, really weird from a player's perspective on that, so take that as you will. Now, as for the weapons, there are a couple of confusing changes. So, Jacob's pistols can sometimes spawn with a much lower fire rate and not much higher damage realistically. And this is to try to emulate Borderlands 1's revolvers, stuff like that. And it ends up just making the weapons feel less powerful. Doesn't necessarily make it more enjoyable or anything like that. They just feel a little more bulky and a little more clunky to use, so that can be a problem. They've tried to diversify the purpose of melee weapons. So on the rapier here, you can see it only gives a 50% melee damage bonus. And then it also does have a melee multiplier that is on a 5-second cooldown. So this is more of a every 5 seconds you swap to this and you poke someone with this type of weapon. The grog nozzle has a built-in melee, but can also spawn with the blade, which is really nice. The law can spawn with a 75% melee damage modifier, but it also provides shield regen on a successful melee, which really confuses me because that more or less cancels out what melee shields are built to do. But after asking the mod author why is that a thing, they basically just said they just wanted a variety of weapons. They didn't have any plans for how people would use them or build them, but they just thought it would be cool to do. And that's kind of the theme with a lot of the mod. A lot of things just feel changed for the sake of being changed, like there wasn't necessarily a plan for it. Like, they made the toothpick shoot 1 pellet, and then they took the Nirvana here, and they made it shoot 5 pellets. 4 of which are unlisted. So, that's cool, I guess. I don't know. Bandit launchers now shoot 1 missile instead of 3, unless they spawn with a Vladoff barrel, in which case they will shoot 3. for some reason. They've changed how the two-fang relic works, so now it just adds an additional projectile to your weapon, and it also reduces gun damage and fire rate to compensate a little bit, which still feels really weird to me. Kind of ruins a two-fang zero build, but it's whatever it is, it's fine. And that's pretty much it. Most of this mod is some okay changes, some changes that are like, why? And then there are a couple weapons that are kind of blatantly a little bit too strong. Like, for example, this masher that I have here, this masher of the Maggie that we have, it multiplies the pellet count by 7 on top of the 6 it already has, so it comes out at 42. And you might think that it has a severely reduced damage to compensate, but it does not. If we go in here, we can look at this Maggie. This does 3000 by 6. This one does 1.5 thousand times 42. Yeah, that's a lot more damage. That's a lot more damage. So it just feels a little bit odd. There are a couple changes that are like this. Things feel weird. Some things feel fine because they're basically vanilla still. And then some things feel a little bit too strong because they're just fun for the mod. So I personally probably wouldn't recommend this mod. Unfortunately, this is the first time I've had to say this. If you want to try it anyway, just to see what it feels like, maybe some of the other characters feel better, maybe some of the equipment on the other character feels better, but I personally didn't necessarily enjoy it, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, Oselands.